Good evening, guys. Bill McMillan here with IndieWX.com. Thursday evening, just really quick, wanted to touch base around Christmas week. Obviously, there's a tremendous amount of attention considering that we're now 10 days away from Christmas Eve, which is hard to believe. And the overall weather pattern is certainly an intriguing one as a southeastern ridge kind of butts up against a trough and associated cold air mass that's going to be bleeding southeast. And there's going to be a tremendous fight here in between. And as things stand now, it continues to look like the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, is certainly in play for impactful wintry weather the closer and closer we get to Christmas. There's been a lot of questions being asked around, well, is this ridge so strong that it forces the wintry and the colder solutions further northwest of Indiana? And from this distance, there's no way to say with certainty that that won't be the case. However, given the setup here, especially with this anomalous pattern across Alaska and the western portion of Canada, it really tells me that cold, shallow, dense Arctic air is going to be pushing and pushing and pushing in this pattern. And even if at 500 millibars you have a setup that looks like it may be warm, on the western side of the ridge, if you will, there's a lot of potential here to have this cold, shallow, dense air really undercut things. And this is a setup, at least from 10 days out, that really screams an ice event for portions of the Ohio Valley on into the interior portions of the Northeast. Now, there's no way to get specific, and the one thing that we continue to try to really impress here is that 10, 11 days out from Christmas, there isn't a way for us to, get tremendously detailed and specific. However, there is consistency in the overall pattern, and that consistency is one that really should yield a storm or potentially storms between Christmas and the New Year. Anytime you've got a southeastern ridge signal like this, you're not going to deal with something that suppresses the overall and kind of just overwhelms the pattern, if you will, and results in storms missing off to the south and the east. Given this look, it really is almost a kind of a perfect scenario for impactful wintry conditions for the Ohio Valley and the Midwest. Now, obviously, we'll have to fine-tune things. We're going to have to obviously get a lot more detailed as time goes along. But 10-plus days out, you can't ask for a better setup here, given the upper air look, at least. And this is off of the European Ensemble. And similar to that 500 millibar pattern, this kind of illustrates a little bit better what we're looking at the surface in terms of the temperature anomalies. Cold really begins to overwhelm here across the central and the Great Lakes region. Meanwhile, we've got the warmth across the southeast associated with that ridge, and in between is where the fight begins. And I will say, with research, there have been a lot of significant winter weather events with similar looks. Think about the whole idea of suppression, depression, as we call it. Given this pattern, you're not going to deal with that. Now, obviously, you could argue, well, potentially the ridge is too strong and it forces the colder, wintry scenario off to the northwest. That said, I think models may actually be overdoing this somewhat. There is certainly, especially looking at the teleconnections as well, going to be some resistance from the ridge here across the southeastern portion of the country, and that will only force the active storm track through the Ohio Valley. Again, 10 days out from Christmas Eve, I can't sit here and say we're going to get hammered with an ice storm or a snowstorm Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. That said, I can say with higher than normal confidence that there will be a storm of significance or potentially waves. It's very possible that we get a cold front that kind of just stalls out here across the deep south into the Tennessee Valley and mid-Atlantic, and we get multiple waves of energy that kind of ripple along that front and go through a rather prolonged period potentially of wintry conditions. I could certainly see that coming from this type of pattern. That said, it is definitely worth your while to keep a very close eye, I think, on the forecast as we go into Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. And for that matter, given the pattern and the signals, this should continue with a colder and stormier than normal theme right into the new year. So really just wanted to touch base briefly this evening around what we can expect going into and closer to the Christmas holiday. We'll certainly be here on IndyWX.com to keep things updated and eventually become a lot more detailed as time grows closer. In the meantime, guys, make it a great Thursday evening. We'll talk with you soon.